Archangel Michael stood between you and destruction last night. This message reveals why and what happens if you ignore the warning. My beloved child, something shifted around you last night in a way your spirit has not yet fully understood. The air carried a silent tremor, a ripple in the unseen realm, and if you had been awake in that exact moment, you might have felt the subtle pull in your chest, a tug, a stillness, a pause. Archangel Michael stepped into the darkness around your home, not as a distant figure, but as a blazing shield standing between you and a destruction that was moments away from touching your life. What happened in that moment was not random, not accidental, not coincidence. It was deliberate. It was intentional. It was heaven intervening with precision. There was a force creeping toward you, quiet, invisible, heavy. A force that had been building over the past few days. You dismissed it as tension, stress, or just a feeling. But Archangel Michael did not dismiss it. He knew what was preparing to rise against you. He knew the weight of the unseen battle. And so he stood before you. He stood in the doorway of your life, sword drawn, wings expanded, power roaring so intensely that even the shadows recoiled. You weren't alone last night. You were covered. There is a reason this message is reaching you now. It is not here to scare you, but to wake you. When heaven interferes this directly, there is always a reason. There is always a warning. And ignoring it can shift the path of your destiny. Archangel Michael does not show up casually. He does not interrupt your timeline unless something is at stake. Your peace, your purpose, or your protection. What you felt recently, the sudden tiredness, the unexpected conflict, the strange heaviness, the emotional waves, those were not random symptoms of life. They were signs of a spiritual storm forming around you. Signs that something was trying to access your mind, your home, your energy. Something that did not want you to step into the season you are being prepared for. But last night, heaven cut that access off. And now, this message is the explanation. You are being shown why Michael stood between you and destruction, because your name is tied to a divine assignment. Because your future carries weight. Because your spirit is needed for something greater than your current understanding. Because you are marked. The attack that was forming against you wasn't just about circumstances. It was about interruption, trying to shake your focus, trying to weaken your resolve, trying to blur your spiritual clarity. You may think you've simply been overwhelmed, but something was trying to overwhelm you on purpose. And Archangel Michael stopped it. But here, this careful protection always comes with instruction. When heaven shields you, heaven also warns you. And you must hear the warning, because ignoring it is where consequences begin. The warning is this: there is something, someone, or some habit you have been tolerating that cannot come with you into the next season. You already know what it is. You felt the nudge. You sensed the discomfort. You've seen the signs. But you held on anyway, out of hope, memory, or fear of change. And that unresolved connection created an opening. That opening weakened your spiritual walls. And that weakness invited last night's attack. Michael blocked what was coming, but he cannot force you to close the door that keeps reopening the same battles. And right now, heaven is saying, if you ignore this warning, the next battle will come harder, faster, and closer. Not because heaven wants it, but because doors left open invite storms. This is why the message is urgent. This is why Michael stepped in. This is why your spirit is being pulled to listen, to pay attention, to understand. A shift is happening in your timeline. The same way night suddenly turned into a battleground without your awareness. Your life is on the edge of a breakthrough that requires your awareness. If you listen carefully, if you adjust now, if you take the next signs seriously, you will walk into a season so clear and so protected that nothing will shake you again like this. But your next step matters. And before you move forward, breathe for a moment. Because what comes next in this message will open your eyes to what has been trying to follow you and what heaven is calling you to release. Hold on. This is where the revelation begins to unfold. Type "I am protected" in the comments if this is speaking to your spirit. Blessing code 144 is now activated. Dearest one, something within you has already started to stir, hasn't it? A tiny whisper, a subtle vibration beneath your ribs, a quiet awareness that last night was not normal. You may not have seen the flash, the shift, or the invisible clash, but your spirit felt it. And now your spirit is asking for the truth behind it. Archangel Michael did not step between you and destruction without purpose. His presence was not for drama. It was for destiny. When he moves, it is because the heavens have evaluated your path and found something precious enough to protect, valuable enough to defend, and dangerous enough to require intervention before you even opened your eyes this morning. You may be wondering what exactly was coming for you. What shape it carried. What form it took. The truth is that not all threats appear as disasters or tragedies. Some arrive disguised as choices. Some as temptations. Some as people. Some as unexpected emotional shifts. Some as subtle spiritual drains that take away your clarity little by little. Last night's destruction did not come wearing a mask of thunder. It came quietly, hoping to slip by unnoticed. A thought pattern trying to take hold. A spiritual influence attempting to attach itself to your vulnerability. A distraction trying to redirect your purpose. Something was trying to access your spirit at the exact moment you were most unguarded. But heaven was already watching. What Michael did for you in the invisible hours cannot be overstated. His presence formed a barrier around your atmosphere, blocking the entry of that destructive force. Imagine a door you didn't know was open suddenly being pushed shut by a divine hand. That is what happened around you. Your peace was being negotiated. Your clarity was being targeted. The space around your mind was being tested for weakness. And heaven responded before you even had the chance to ask for help. Not because you are fragile, but because you are chosen. You see, there are certain people whose lives are intricately tied to divine timelines. People whose presence influences others. People whose growth affects the lives of many. People whose energy is needed for something they have not yet fully stepped into. You are one of them. That is why the interference came. Not because you are unworthy, but because you are worthy of being stopped. Destruction rarely targets the insignificant. It targets the rising. And you, without even realizing it, have been rising. But protection is not the full message. It is only the introduction. Heaven protected you last night so you could receive this revelation now. Michael intervened so that you could understand the deeper layer of what has been happening around you. The reason that unseen storm approached is tied to something in your life that has been draining your strength. Something you've tolerated out of habit or confusion. Something that has been quietly weakening your spiritual boundaries. You may feel like nothing unusual has happened to you recently, but look closer. The signs were there. A sudden heaviness. The unexpected tension with someone. The random discouragement. The odd exhaustion that didn't match your day. The strange arguments that came out of nowhere. The thoughts that didn't sound like your own. These were all tremors before the impact. And heaven could not allow that impact to hit you. Michael stood guard because something you have not dealt with has been creating small cracks in your spiritual armor. Cracks that have been getting wider. cracks that destruction tried to slip through. You were being watched by something that hoped your delay would become your downfall. Something hoped that your hesitation would become an invitation. And heaven could not let that happen. Now you are being called to act. There is a shift you must make. A decision you must finally confront. A boundary you must strengthen. A pattern you must break. A connection you must reevaluate. You already know what it is because your spirit has been whispering about this for days, maybe weeks. When you think about it, there is a tightening in your chest. A stirring. A knowing. And now heaven is removing the luxury of ignoring it. The warning is clear. If the door remains open, the storm will return. Not because Michael will fail to protect you, but because your growth depends on you learning how to seal the access points in your life. Heaven does not want you living from crisis to crisis. Heaven wants you living fortified, aligned, and awakened. And this message is the blueprint. Archangel Michael is not revealing the details of last night's near destruction just to alarm you. He is revealing it so you understand the urgency of the spiritual season you have entered. You are being prepared for elevation, prepared for clarity, prepared for an assignment that requires you to be fully aligned. And this alignment begins with facing what you have avoided. Your spirit already senses that something big is approaching your life. Something that will require your full strength. Something that will require your boundaries to be firm, your heart to be clear, and your spiritual atmosphere to be protected. The interference that came last night was not just an attack. It was a sign that your breakthrough is close enough to provoke resistance. And that means the next part of this message is absolutely crucial. Because what is about to be revealed will explain the exact reason the destruction targeted you at this time, and what heaven needs you to adjust to stay protected, aligned, and ready. Wait. Don't boo. The revelation is about to deepen in a way that will make everything suddenly make sense. Type "I align with heaven" in the comments if this is speaking to your spirit. Blessing code 411 is now activated. Beloved one, as you step deeper into the truth of what happened last night, you may begin to feel a strange mixture of relief and uneasiness. Relief, because heaven shielded you before the danger could reach you. Uneasiness, because your spirit senses that the full revelation is still unfolding. And that feeling is correct. The reason Archangel Michael intervened so fiercely is not only about what approached you, but about what it was trying to interrupt in you. There is a rise happening within your destiny, a shift so significant that the unseen realm reacted to it before you did. The destruction that came near you last night was a response to your potential, a response to your movement, a response to the quiet spiritual awakening that has begun to stir inside you. Something is changing in your atmosphere, and every realm can feel it. There is a point in every chosen person's journey where heaven steps in not only to protect, but to redirect. Last night was such a moment. Michael did not simply stand between you and danger. He positioned himself at a crossroads in your life. You have been walking with weight on your shoulders that you have learned to ignore. You have tolerated old patterns for so long that you have forgotten how heavy they are. You have allowed certain voices, memories, habits, and even emotions to travel with you longer than they were meant to. And that extra weight has begun to slow your spirit in ways you did not realize. The attack that came was not random. It targeted the very area where your spirit has been stretched thin. It came for your clarity, because confusion delays purpose. It came for your peace, because chaos interrupts alignment. It came for your confidence, because doubt weakens movement. It came for your energy, because exhaustion blurs discernment. But heaven refused to let the blow land. Michael stood in that invisible battlefield because something in your life is overdue for release, and destruction attempted to strike before you could make the shift. This is where the revelation becomes personal. You are at a divine threshold, a place where certain old connections and patterns cannot travel forward with you. And heaven is trying to deliver a warning that is also an invitation. A warning that if you ignore the signs, the door you leave open will only grow wider. And an invitation to finally allow your soul to rise without the weight you have been quietly carrying. There is someone or something in your life that you have been spiritually outgrowing, but emotionally holding on to. It may be a relationship you've tried to maintain even as it drains you. A habit that comforts you but slows your spirit. A cycle you know is unhealthy but feels familiar. A promise you made when you were in a different season of your life. A fear you've allowed to sit in the back of your mind for far too long. And this lingering attachment has created repeated openings in your atmosphere, openings you have learned to tolerate, but heaven refuses to. Last night was proof that the danger of staying connected to what weakens you is greater than you realized. Heaven is sounding the alarm because the next phase of your calling cannot begin until these openings are sealed. And your spirit knows this. Every time you felt strange heaviness for no reason, every time your energy suddenly dropped, every time your intuition whispered that something was off, heaven was signaling you. But now the calling is louder, more urgent, more direct. Archangel Michael does not show up to protect what is temporary. He protects what is divine. And if he stood between you and destruction, it means your future carries a spiritual assignment that hell wants to prevent and heaven wants to accelerate. You are being prepared for something greater, something clearer, something that requires your full strength and full awareness. And in this moment, heaven is not just guarding you. Heaven is teaching you. You are being asked to listen, to shift, to align, to step into the next level of your spiritual identity. Your purpose is no longer whispering. It is calling. It is awakening. It is rising. And the reason the attack came last night is because your breakthrough is near enough to disturb every force that benefits from your stagnation. This is why the warning matters. This is why the message is arriving in this exact moment. This is why your spirit feels so stirred as you listen. There is something heaven wants you to see clearly as you continue. When Archangel Michael stands between you and destruction, it is a sign that you are not just surviving a moment. You are entering a season where your spirit will sharpen, a season where clarity will increase, a season where protection surrounds you in new ways. But with elevation comes responsibility. You must release the thing that keeps reopening the same spiritual wounds. You must distance yourself from what drains your calling. You must close the doors that heaven has been highlighting. Because if the door remains open, the storm will return with more force. And heaven is giving you this warning now so you can avoid that cycle entirely. What comes next in this message will reveal what was truly after you, why it targeted you now, and what heaven is preparing to unlock for you once you make the shift. Stay with this. Something powerful is unfolding, and your spirit will recognize it as truth. Before you move forward, pause. You are standing inside a moment of divine instruction, and the next revelation will shift your understanding of what last night really was. Wait right here. You will want to hear what comes next. Take a moment to like this message, share it with someone who needs protection, comment to keep this space active, and subscribe so you remain aligned with every revelation released for you. Type "I receive the warning" in the comments if this message is reaching your spirit. Blessing code 1221 has now been released. Now, beloved soul, let me speak to you as heaven's messenger in this support call. When you sow into this mission, you are not helping a channel grow. You are helping God reach hearts that would never encounter these warnings without you. Heaven works through willing vessels, and your seed becomes a river that carries light into places shadowed by fear and confusion. The Word declares that when you sow into holy ground, heaven opens over you, and right now that promise is not just written. It is living, breathing, speaking directly into your spirit. I feel strongly to say this. I invite you, personally, to step into this divine moment. The very message you just heard about Michael standing between you and destruction carries the same urgency into your act of support. When you give, you align with the same protection that fought for you last night. And to every giver, I declare prophetically, your seed will not return empty but will unlock spiritual clarity and covering over your household. Stand in this moment and act. You super thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description. Child of light, as you move deeper into this unfolding revelation, let your spirit settle for a moment and truly absorb what is happening around you. A spiritual event as significant as last night does not simply pass through your atmosphere without leaving an imprint. You may not have seen the clash, and you may not have heard the strike of Michael's sword in the unseen realm, but your inner world felt it. That subtle shift in your emotions earlier today, that moment where you paused without knowing why, that sudden urge to reflect, breathe, or even question your recent thoughts. These are the echoes of what heaven shielded you from. Protection leaves traces. Divine intervention leaves a residue of awareness. And right now, heaven is continuing to pull you closer so that you do not miss the meaning behind the moment. There is a reason. This revelation is coming to you in layers. Heaven releases truth at the pace your spirit is ready to receive. And your spirit, though strong, has been carrying burdens and long-standing patterns that have clouded your clarity. What happened last night was not only an act of defense, it was a divine interruption to prevent you from drifting any deeper into old cycles. You already felt yourself slipping, didn't you? Slipping into emotional spaces that drained you. Slipping into mental loops that pulled your energy downward. Slipping into relationships or interactions that felt heavy long before they became harmful. Slipping into habits that offered temporary comfort but long-term weakness. And because you have a compassionate heart, you often give more of yourself than you should, leaving openings where darkness can test your vulnerability. Last night's attempted destruction targeted that vulnerability. Not your strength, not your faith, not your destiny, but the small, tired place within you that you have not fully acknowledged. The place that feels overlooked, overwhelmed, or quietly discouraged. Darkness always tries to enter through the softest point. And that is exactly why Michael stood in front of you. He saw what you did not see. He recognized the subtle shifts you had been tolerating. He recognized the emotional pressure you've been trying to push through alone. He recognized the spiritual opposition forming as a response to your coming elevation. And he refused to let that destructive force collide with you in your weakened state. This is not a message of fear. It is a message of awakening. Heaven is bringing your awareness to a truth that you must confront. You have been giving parts of yourself to situations that are no longer aligned with your purpose. You have been pouring into people who drain without replenishing. You have been walking with weights that are disguised as responsibilities. And some of the battles you've experienced recently are not attacks. They are consequences of carrying what heaven hath been asking you to release. This is where the revelation sharpens. The destruction that was approaching you was not just external. Part of it was internal. It came from the parts of you that are exhausted by your silence. You have been trying to remain strong, stable, dependable, and composed. You have been pushing through your days, holding yourself together, making sure others are okay while ignoring your own spiritual needs. And heaven finally stepped in because you were reaching a point where the weight could have broken something inside you. Michael's intervention was not only protection from something outside, it was protection from collapse within. Heaven is calling you into alignment, not with fear, but with restoration. This season requires clarity. This season requires spiritual sharpness. This season requires that you stop ignoring the subtle signs of emotional overextension. You must acknowledge where you are vulnerable so that heaven can strengthen what needs reinforcement. Denial leaves doors open. Awareness allows heaven to fortify you. There is something else you need to understand about last night. When destruction approaches a chosen one, it does so when the chosen one is closest to breakthrough. And make no mistake, you are closer to a divine shift than you realize. That breakthrough is not just external. It is not just financial, relational, or circumstantial. It is internal. Your spirit has been primed for transformation. Your intuition is sharpening. Your emotional insight is deepening. Your capacity for discernment is increasing. And elevation always draws interference. This is why you cannot afford to move blindly into your next season. The warning is not punishment. It is mercy. It is preparation. It is a call to spiritual maturity. The forces that approached you last night will attempt to return if the door remains open. But if you make the shift heaven is asking for, that door will close permanently. And now, heaven is guiding you toward the truth behind the next layer of this revelation. You are being prepared to face the deeper reason that destruction targeted you at this exact point in your life. Something about your future is too powerful to leave unguarded. Something about your calling is becoming too visible in the spiritual realm to remain unchallenged. And something about your growth is awakening a new level of anointing within you. You must hear what comes next. The cunning revelation will explain why the timing of last night was not accidental and what heaven is preparing to expose for your protection. Wait right here. What is about to be revealed will connect everything. Type "I hear the warning" in the comments if this message speaks to your spirit. Blessing code 909 has now been released. Precious soul, take a deep breath as we step further into this revelation, because what is unfolding now requires your full attention and an open spirit. You have already walked through the understanding of what approached you last night, but now you must understand why it chose this moment and why heaven refused to allow it near you. These moments in the spiritual realm are never random. They follow patterns, seasons, pressure points, and divine timings. What happened around you was not simply an attack. It was a reaction. A reaction to the shift taking place inside you. A shift so profound that the unseen realm responded before you even realized you were changing. There is something happening within you that you may not have words for yet. A rise. A strengthening. A quiet but powerful transformation in your inner world. Your awareness has been expanding. Your intuition has been sharpening. Your emotional sensitivity has been increasing, not as a weakness but as a spiritual signal. You have been seeing things differently lately, haven't you? Feeling things more intensely. Questioning situations you used to accept. Pulling away from certain people without understanding why. Feeling drawn toward peace even when chaos tries to call your name. These shifts are indicators. They are spiritual markers that something inside you is being restored, renewed, elevated, and awakened. And this awakening did not go unnoticed. The reason destruction approached last night is because your spirit crossed a threshold. You stepped into a new vibrational space, a deeper level of clarity, a heightened level of spiritual authority. And when a chosen one's spirit begins to rise beyond old patterns, old attachments, and old limitations, the forces that once fed on their uncertainty begin to panic. Last night's interference was not confidence. It was desperation. It was the unseen realm's last attempt to cling to the remnants of your former weakness. It came to test whether you would remain anchored in old cycles or rise into the strength that heaven has been preparing within you. This is why Michael had to intervene. Not because you were losing. Not because you were unprotected. But because the timing of your awakening made you temporarily vulnerable. When you are in the middle of transformation, you are still shedding old layers. And those layers create openings. Emotional openings. Mental openings. Spiritual openings. In those moments, the wrong influences can creep in silently, using your exhaustion or confusion against you. The force that approached you last night saw those openings and attempted to take advantage of them. But heaven saw you too, and heaven moved faster. Michael stepped between you and that destructive energy because heaven knew the cost of interference at such a critical point in your life. If that force had reached you, it could have distorted your clarity. It could have drained your purpose. It could have pulled you backward into an identity you have already outgrown. It could have delayed your calling by weeks, months, or even years. What was coming was not meant to destroy your life physically. It was meant to destroy your direction spiritually. Heaven refused to allow that. This is where the message goes deeper. You have reached a point where you are no longer who you used to be, but not yet fully who you are becoming. You are standing in a spiritual in-between, and that is the most dangerous place for any rising soul. The old still tries to cling. The past tries to speak. The familiar tries to pull. And if the wrong voice reaches you first, it can anchor you to a season that God has already closed. This is why heaven reacted with such urgency. You are closer to stepping into your divine purpose than you have ever been. And when purpose is near, distraction intensifies. There is something else heaven wants you to recognize. Your spirit has been growing stronger even when your emotions felt weak. The heaviness you felt recently was not collapse, it was stretching. The confusion you felt was not failure, it was transition. The discomfort you sensed was not instability, it was alignment. Your spirit has been expanding beyond people, environments, and habits that no longer match your new frequency. This is why certain relationships feel different. Why certain conversations feel draining. Why certain places feel heavier than before. Your spirit is outgrowing these things. And that outgrowth triggered the attack. Because the moment your spirit rises beyond the reach of old influences, those influences try to pull you back. Not because they are strong, but because you are becoming stronger. Your purpose is becoming clearer. Your energy is becoming more refined. And heaven is making sure that nothing slows what is being awakened within you. But now you must do your part. Michael blocked the destruction, but you must close the door it attempted to enter through. You must acknowledge the emotional, mental, or spiritual opening that allowed that force to approach you. You must take the inner shift seriously. You must not return to what drains your spirit. You must not silence the intuition that has been warning you. You must not ignore the signs that heaven hath been sending, because ignoring them will only invite the storm back with greater force. And heaven does not want that for you. Heaven wants you strengthened, prepared, and aligned. Heaven wants your next steps to be rooted in clarity, not confusion. Heaven wants you to rise with confidence into the identity you were created to embody. And the next part of this message will guide you toward recognizing exactly what that door is and how you must close it. Something important is coming. Do not miss what is about to unfold. Type "I will not go back" in the comments if this is resonating with your spirit. Blessing code 717 has now been released. Beloved soul, as we continue this journey into understanding the depth of what happened around you, prepare your heart for a deeper unveiling. The layers we have walked through so far have prepared you for the next revelation, because heaven is not only showing you what nearly touched your life, it is also revealing what has been quietly forming within you, shaping your inner world, and calling you toward a higher identity. What happened last night was not an isolated event. It was a culmination, a collision point between your spiritual evolution and the forces that hope to deter it. And now heaven is drawing your attention to the truth behind the door that destruction attempted to slip through. You have been undergoing a spiritual elevation that has been subtle on the outside but monumental within. The tension you felt, the sudden exhaustion, the moments where you questioned yourself, the times where you felt disconnected from people you used to understand easily, the strange internal pull toward reflection, solitude, or change. These sensations were not random. They were indicators that your inner world is shifting dimensions. You are leaving behind an old version of yourself, one that was built through survival, people-pleasing, emotional strain, and the expectations of others. That version of you served a purpose once, but it cannot carry you into what heaven is preparing. And this transition is exactly what made you vulnerable. Not because you are weak, but because when the soul begins to shed old layers, there is a period of openness. A moment where old beliefs loosen, but new ones have not yet solidified. A moment where past habits no longer satisfy, but new spiritual habits are still forming. A moment where your emotional ground feels tender because your spirit is stretching beyond past limits. This in-between space is where destruction attempted to meet you. It is the place where old wounds try to reopen, where old relationships try to resurface, where old fears whisper again. And heaven saw that something familiar from your past had attempted to disguise itself as something harmless, hoping you would not notice the subtle danger. This hidden door, the access point, was emotional, not physical. It was tied to a feeling you have not resolved, a memory you still carry, a person you have not fully released, a disappointment you swallowed instead of healing. Something in you remained unaddressed, and that unaddressed place created a small crack in your atmosphere. Heaven is showing you this not to shame you, but to free you. Because if that emotional doorway had remained unnoticed, the interference aimed at you last night could have gained momentum. Not physically, but spiritually, softening your focus, weakening your clarity, stirring confusion, or amplifying insecurity. It is important to understand, darkness does not always attack with dramatic events. Sometimes it comes as a subtle pull, a draining conversation, a resurfacing thought, a small but persistent anxiety, a voice inside you that tells you to doubt yourself. These are spiritual breaches, and they often enter through emotional passages you never realized were still open. Michael intervened because something tried to access you through a place where your heart still holds old pain. Now heaven is calling you to look at what that pain is rooted in. Because closing the door requires identifying what created it. For some, the vulnerability comes from a past betrayal. Something that taught you to guard yourself too tightly or trust too easily. For others, it comes from childhood patterns that condition you to seek approval, validation, or emotional safety from unstable sources. For others still, it comes from unresolved grief, regret, or guilt that was never fully processed. When you carry pain as part of your identity, it becomes an entrance. Heaven saw that the entrance was growing weaker and that something had targeted your fatigue. Your spirit has been growing, but the remnants of your past still cling to places where healing has not yet finished. And heaven does not want your destiny to be shaped by what wounded you. That is why last night happened the way it did. Because your calling requires the healed version of you, not the burdened one. Something else is happening that you must understand clearly. Your spiritual growth has created conflict in the unseen realm because you are breaking patterns that once held you captive. The moment you begin to detach from these patterns, the forces connected to them react. This is why life has felt heavy lately, why certain people's behavior has changed, why you have been sensing emotional pressure or unexpected tension. You are pulling away from old cycles, and those cycles are pulling back. But they cannot win. They cannot overpower what heaven has already sealed around you. Michael's presence last night was proof that heaven's hand is on your journey. You are not walking blindly. You are being guided, protected, corrected, and elevated. This next phase of your life requires you to recognize the emotional doorway that invited the pressure you felt recently. You must tend to it, heal it, and close it. Heaven will not allow you to walk into your future dragging the residue of your past. The elevation coming to your life requires emotional clarity. It requires spiritual stability. It requires aligned identity. And to step into this fully, you must acknowledge the part of you that needed Michael's protection most. The next revelation will show you exactly what heaven is preparing to release once this door is closed. You are approaching the heart of this message, and the truth that comes next will illuminate everything you have been sensing in your spirit. Stay here. Do not drift. The next unveiling will sharpen your understanding of your destiny in a way that will feel like your spirit has been waiting for it. Type "I am ready to SE" clearly in the comments if this is awakening something within you. Lesson code 515 has now been released. Beloved one, take a slow breath as you step into this next layer, because what is about to be revealed touches the deepest part of your journey, your purpose, your identity, and the divine timing that surrounds your life. Everything you have sensed in your spirit lately, every shift in your atmosphere, every moment of emotional unease, has been leading you to this point. Heaven does not reveal these things unless a soul is ready to hear them. And you are ready. What happened last night was not only about danger approaching you, it was about purpose awakening within you. You are standing in a season where your spirit is outgrowing who you used to be, and heaven is making sure that nothing delays the person you are becoming. To truly understand why Michael stood between you and destruction, you must understand what heaven is preparing you for. There is something you have been called to carry in this lifetime that requires both spiritual maturity and emotional clarity. You have been chosen to break patterns that have run in your family, to rise above generational cycles, to carry wisdom that those before you did not have the strength to hold. You are not just being protected, you are being positioned. You are being prepared to influence, to guide, to uplift, to shift the atmosphere wherever you go. This is why your spirit has been going through such intense internal rearrangement. You are stepping into the version of yourself that was always meant to lead, to shine, to bring healing into places that once brought you pain. But transformation always brings tension. And the tension you have felt recently, the heaviness, the uncertainty, the emotional pressure, was not a sign that you were failing. It was a sign that your spirit was breaking out of confinement. Old versions of you have been dissolving. Old fears have been releasing their grip. Old insecurities have been losing their voice. And as these layers fall away, they leave temporary openings in your heart. These openings are where the attack attempted to enter. But heaven saw that you were in a delicate moment, too close to breakthrough to risk any setback. And so Michael intervened, not because you were weak, but because you were evolving. You must understand something profound. Destruction always targets transformation. When a soul is stagnant, the unseen realm does not react. But when a soul begins to rise, that rise sends vibration into the spiritual atmosphere. When your spirit begins to align with purpose, Forces that once benefited from your confusion begin to panic. When you start questioning what drains you, distancing yourself from unhealthy attachments, and moving toward peace, the old energies that fed on your emotional fragmentation try to pull you back. And the pressure you felt was not a sign that you were slipping. It was a sign that your breakthrough was being noticed. This is where your awareness becomes critical. Heaven is not only showing you what almost reached you, it is showing you the reason for it. You are being called into a season where clarity must become your foundation. Too often, you have ignored your intuition to keep peace with others. Too often, you have minimized your own needs to avoid conflict. Too often, you have tolerated emotional weight that was never yours to carry. And these habits have created recurring openings, small cracks where emotional exhaustion, self-doubt, and spiritual vulnerability can slip in. Heaven is showing you, gently but firmly, that this next season cannot be walked with those same patterns. You are being called to strengthen the walls of your spirit, to guard your discernment, to trust your intuition without hesitation. You are being asked to choose yourself in ways you once found difficult. You are being guided to remove yourself from situations that drain your energy, even if those situations feel familiar or comfortable. Heaven is asking you to become intentional about who you allow close to your heart. Not out of fear, but out of alignment. There is also something else Heaven wants you to recognize. The destruction that approached you did so because of something powerful that is about to unlock in your future. A new opportunity. A spiritual assignment. A season of elevation. Something prophetic. Something purposeful. Something transformative is drawing nearer, and the forces that stand against you sensed it before even you did. When destiny comes close, distractions intensify. When elevation approaches, old patterns attempt to reappear. When spiritual gifts awaken, fear tries to whisper again. This is why you felt sudden moments of confusion or heaviness. These were not random. They were indicators of a shift in the spiritual atmosphere around you. And Heaven refused to allow anything to derail the path set before you. Michael stood between you and destruction because Heaven is ushering you into a chapter where you will think differently, move differently, speak differently, and discern differently. You are being shaped into someone who carries wisdom with authority, peace with strength, intuition with confidence. You are being elevated into a version of yourself that walks with purpose rather than fear, clarity rather than confusion, alignment rather than compromise. And to enter that version, certain emotional passageways must close. Certain people must be loved from a distance. Certain habits must be released. Certain old identity must be shed. You are being purified, not punished. Strengthened, not shaken. Elevated, not tested in vain. Everything you have felt, every internal shift, every moment that felt heavy or strange, has been part of a greater spiritual realignment. And what comes next in this message will reveal exactly what Heaven is preparing to release through your growth, something that will not only shift your life, but the lives of those connected to you. The revelation ahead carries weight, and your spirit will recognize it the moment you hear it. Say right here. The next unveiling will bring perfect clarity to what your spirit has been sensing all along. Type "I step into my rise" in the comments if this is awakening truth in your spirit. Blessing code 606 has now been released. Beloved heart, as we step into this next unveiling, let your spirit become fully receptive, because what Heaven is about to reveal reaches into the core of your calling. Up to now, you have learned what approached you, why it sought you, and how Archangel Michael stood between you and a destruction that would have altered the direction of your journey. But now, Heaven brings you into an even deeper awareness, one that explains not only the attack, but the magnitude of the destiny it was trying to prevent. You must understand this truth clearly, because once you grasp it, the pieces of your life that have felt confusing, heavy, or spiritually strange will suddenly fall into alignment. There is a reason the unseen realm has been so active around you. There is a reason the pressure intensified. There is a reason the atmosphere around your spirit has felt charged with both promise and tension. You are entering a chapter where your spiritual gifts are sharpening. You may have noticed moments recently where your intuition felt stronger than usual, where you sensed things before they happened, where you felt the emotional atmosphere of a room without anyone speaking, where your dreams carried unusual clarity, or where sudden thoughts seemed to come from a place beyond your conscious mind. These are not coincidences. They are the early signs of spiritual activation. You were born with a sensitivity to the divine that many never experience. Even in seasons when you felt disconnected or distant, your spirit was always receptive, always listening, always aware of the unseen. You have always been marked, set apart, woven into a purpose that carries spiritual weight. And that weight has begun to rise to the surface. This is why the attack did not come during a season of your weakness. Heaven guarded those moments. It came now, at the moment your spirit began to awaken at a higher frequency. Destruction always tries to strike when a chosen soul begins to step into identity. You have been feeling something shifting around you even if you couldn't explain it. A sense of spiritual alertness, a pull toward solitude, a desire to disconnect from noise, a craving for clarity. These are signs that heaven is downloading new awareness into you. You are outgrowing environments that once held you comfortably. People who once understood you now feel distant because your spirit has risen beyond their reach. Emotional patterns that once felt familiar now feel restrictive. You have been moving into a season of purification. Your heart, your mind, your intuition, your boundaries are all being redefined. And it is this refinement that the destructive force attempted to interrupt. Heaven is showing you now that your calling is not just personal. You are being positioned to influence others, to awaken others, to speak truth into places where confusion has lived for too long. Your voice carries spiritual frequency. Your presence brings alignment. Your life will touch others in ways you do not yet realize. But for this calling to unfold, you must walk with clarity, not clouded vision. You must walk with discernment, not emotional exhaustion. You must walk with courage, not hesitation. This is why heaven stepped in so fiercely last night. You are not stepping into an ordinary season. You are stepping into assignment. The forces that targeted you knew that if they could confuse you at this critical moment, they could delay your purpose. If they could discourage you, they could weaken your momentum. If they could distort your perception, they could make you question the truth heaven is revealing to you now. But their attempt failed, because Archangel Michael intervened with such force that the atmosphere around you was sealed before the blow could land. Now, heaven is showing you the next step. You must close the door that invited that interference. Not because heaven cannot protect you, but because you are being called into responsibility. You cannot walk into this next chapter with the habits, attachments, or emotional openings of the last one. You must fortify your inner world. You must listen to your intuition without dismissing it. You must trust the signs heaven sends. You must honor your own spirit instead of pushing its needs aside for the comfort of others. This is your preparation. And now, another layer unfolds. Heaven is preparing to release new strength into your life, new clarity, new spiritual awareness. You may begin noticing synchronicities, unexpected alignment, deeper peace, or a sudden understanding of things that once confused you. Your dreams may grow sharper. Your thoughts may become more focused. The emotional heaviness that once lingered may begin to lift. These are confirmations that heaven is not only protecting you, It is positioning you. But before you receive what comes next, heaven asks you to stay present, stay attentive, stay open. There is a profound revelation yet to come, one that will connect every sign, every shift, every moment your spirit has sensed something changing. Hold on. Do not look away. You are stepping into the heart of the message now. Take a moment to like this message, share it so others can awaken, comment to amplify this space, and subscribe so every divine word reaches you when it is needed most. Type "I stand in my purpose" in the comments if this is speaking to your spirit. Blessing code 2024 has now been released. And now, child of destiny, let me speak this support message into your spirit. The same way Michael stood guard over your life last night, this mission stands guard over the souls who listen, guiding them back to divine truth. When you support this work, you are not giving to a person. You are fueling a spiritual assignment that heaven is using to reach hearts that are moments away from breakthrough or collapse. The Word of God is rising like fresh oil over this message, and it declares that those who sow into the work of light will see a harvest of protection and clarity poured back into their homes. I feel led to say this directly to you. Step into this moment as an act of spiritual alignment. Let your giving become a prophetic seal over the protection that heaven released last night. And every giver, I speak this blessing over you. May your seed unlock open heavens, restored peace, and divine acceleration. Move with intention. Use super thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description. Beloved soul, as we step into this new revelation, let your heart become still and receptive, because what heaven is about to show you will not only clarify last night's intervention, it will illuminate the calling that has been forming around your life since long before you understood your own strength. You have walked through layers of truth already, but this part brings you face to face with the deeper spiritual reality of who you are becoming. Heaven does not release understanding of this magnitude unless a person is ready. And you are ready. Your spirit has been awakening piece by piece, gently at first, then more intensely as these revelations have unfolded. What happened last night was not simply heaven rescuing you from destruction. It was heaven affirming you, marking you, confirming you as someone whose life carries spiritual weight. To understand this moment fully, you must recognize the power of your presence. There is something unique about the way your spirit interacts with the world. You do not walk through life lightly, even when you feel unnoticed. Your energy shifts rooms without you speaking. Your intuition sees through the surface of things that others overlook. Your sensitivity is not weakness, it is spiritual sight. It is perception. It is the reason heaven has guided you, protected you, and redirected you so carefully. Sensitive souls are deeply targeted because they are deeply gifted. And you, beloved, carry a gift that destruction hoped to distort before you could discover its full strength. Your spiritual gifts have been growing quietly for years. Even when you doubted yourself. Even when you felt disconnected. Even when you thought your intuition was just anxiety or imagination. But heaven has been nurturing this gift within you, and now it is rising to the surface. You have the ability to sense truths others cannot. You are able to feel emotional shifts before situations unfold. You are able to perceive when something is wrong even when no one says a word. You absorb spiritual tension without meaning to, and you anchor peace even when you are tired yourself. This is why people come to you with their problems. This is why strangers feel comfortable sharing their hearts. This is why certain individuals cling to you, hoping to draw from your light without giving anything in return. The gift inside you is not accidental. It is intentional. And it is awakening. But the destructive force targeted last night was not your body, not your mind, and targeted your spiritual clarity. Because if it could cloud your discernment, it could silence the voice inside you that heaven is strengthening. If it could overwhelm your emotions, it could weaken your perception. If it could distract you, it could delay the wisdom you are meant to receive and release. This is why the attack came quietly, subtly, slowly, hoping you would not notice. But heaven saw it long before it reached you, and Michael cut it off before it could influence you. This intervention was not just protection. It was confirmation. You are stepping into a phase of life where your spiritual gifts will become essential to your journey. Heaven is calling you to move with greater awareness, greater sensitivity, greater trust in your intuition. You must no longer ignore the inner signals that have been whispering to you. Those whispers are divine communication. That heaviness you sometimes feel is a warning. A sudden discomfort around certain people is discernment. A pull away from certain environments is guidance. You are hearing heaven more clearly than ever before. You just have not recognized it as communication. What comes next in your life will require this awareness. You are being positioned for new connections, new opportunities, new spiritual responsibilities. And these blessings require discernment. Heaven cannot allow you to walk blindly into this next season. That is why last night's protection was so forceful. Heaven needed to ensure that your vision remained clear, your spirit remained intact, and your path remained aligned. You must understand something else that heaven is revealing now. You have survived spiritual attacks that others would have collapsed under. You have been protected from emotional battles that would have broken many. You have stood through seasons that were meant to weaken your faith beyond repair. And yet, here you are, still rising, still awakening, still becoming. This is not by your strength alone. It is because heaven has preserved you for something greater than anything you have yet experienced. Last night was not only about what always touched you. It was about what heaven is preparing to release into your life. The timing of the attack reveals the timing of the blessing. Something is coming. Something purposeful. Something transformative. Something heaven sent. And your spirit has already sensed it even if your mind has not yet recognized it. You may feel stirred lately, as if something significant is approaching. You may feel restless, reflective, or emotionally sensitive for no clear reason. These are signs that your spirit is preparing for alignment. Heaven is shaping you, cleansing you, strengthening you. There is a version of you emerging that is more intuitive, more intentional, more spiritually aware, more resilient than you had ever been. This is the version of you that heaven protected last night. And now, heaven is guiding you to recognize the role you will play moving forward. You are being called to become a guardian of peace, a carrier of clarity, a walking vessel of discernment. The wisdom you gain from these revelations will not only shape your personal journey, it will guide others, uplift others, waken others. The light within you is growing brighter, and heaven is ensuring that no force is allowed to dim it. The next message will unveil what heaven is aligning for your future, and why your awakening is necessary for it to unfold. Hold still. Stay present. What comes next carries weight. Type I rise in the light if your spirit feels this truth. Blessing code 888 has now been released. Beloved soul, as we now enter this deeper unveiling, let your spirit quiet itself and prepare for an expansion of understanding. You have walked through revelation after revelation, and each one has peeled back a layer of truth that you were finally ready to see. But what heaven is revealing now is not merely about what happened to you last night. It is about what is being prepared for your future. When Archangel Michael stood between you and destruction, it was not only a moment of protection. It was a declaration from heaven that your next season requires you fully awakened, fully aware, and fully aligned. You are not being preserved for ordinary days. You are being positioned for a purpose that demands spiritual clarity. To comprehend the magnitude of what is unfolding, you must understand something profound. You are entering a season of divine acceleration. You may not have felt it fully yet, but the signs have already begun. Sudden shifts in your emotions. Unexpected clarity about certain people or situations. A growing detachment from old environments. A rising sense of inner strength that you cannot explain. A pull toward quiet reflection, healing, and reevaluation. These changes are not coincidences. They are the markers of a spiritual transition, one that heaven hath been preparing you for over a long period of time. The destruction that approached you last night was not about your past. It was about your future. It was a last attempt to pull you backward before heaven pushes you forward. You are on the brink of stepping into a chapter where blessings come into alignment more quickly, where clarity comes more naturally, where your intuition grows sharper, where purposeful opportunities open without the usual resistance. But such seasons attract interference because the enemy always fears a soul that remembers who they are. Your purpose carries weight. Your presence carries impact. Your voice, even when quiet, carries influence. You are not meant to drift through life unnoticed. You are meant to rise into authority, emotionally, spiritually, and personally. And heaven could not allow anything to distort the path you are entering. This is why the protection was swift. This is why Michael intervened at the exact moment the threat approached. This is why you felt a strange shift in your spirit without fully understanding why. Now heaven is revealing the deeper truth. You are being aligned for elevation. Elevation does not always begin with external blessings. Often, it begins when heaven sharpens your discernment, strengthens your boundaries, and awakens your awareness. The shift you are feeling inside is the beginning of that elevation. You are no longer comfortable with what drains you. You no longer tolerate what destabilizes your peace. You no longer ignore your intuition when it warns you. This is not a phase, it is spiritual maturity taking root. You may have noticed that certain people you once felt connected to no longer feel aligned. Conversations that once fulfilled you now feel shallow. Environments that used to feel familiar now feel heavy. This is because your spirit is preparing to rise into a higher environment. When heaven elevates a soul, the old atmosphere becomes restrictive. What surrounded you in past seasons cannot follow you into the new one. And this, too, is why the attack came when it did, because you are outgrowing the places where spiritual interference once had easier access to you. But now heaven is closing those access points. The emotional doorway we identified earlier, the one tied to old wounds or unresolved memories, is not just a place of vulnerability. It is also a place of transformation. Healing does not only close wounds, it unlocks power. And heaven is guiding you to understand that the area where you once felt most fragile will become the area of your greatest authority. You are not being healed to simply feel better. You are being healed to become stronger. You are being prepared to speak from a place of wisdom rather than pain. You are being shaped into someone who carries insight instead of insecurity. The next part of your destiny requires a stronger, wiser, clearer version of you, and that version is emerging even now. There is something else heaven wants you to understand in this moment. When Michael stood between you and destruction, it was not only to shield you from harm, it was to preserve your timeline. When a chosen soul steps into alignment, timing becomes critical. Heaven guarded your path so that nothing could delay the blessings, opportunities, and alignments that are approaching you. You are stepping into a period where doors will open unexpectedly, where relationships will form that feel divinely orchestrated, where answers to old questions suddenly become clear. This is the flow of divine alignment, and you are stepping into it. Your spirit may already sense that something new is coming. You may feel anticipation, even if you cannot name its source. You may feel a quiet confidence rising, even if you still face uncertainty. You may feel a soft inner whisper saying, "Something is shifting." This is heaven preparing you for the next chapter. And the clarity you will receive in the coming season will exceed anything you have known before. But before you step into elevation fully, heaven needs you to do something essential. Remain attentive. Remain spiritually awake. Remain open to instruction. The same spiritual sensitivity that protected you last night will guide you into your next season. Do not ignore your intuition. Do not dismiss the signs heaven places in your path. Do not silence the inner voice that has been growing louder each day. You are hearing heaven more clearly now than ever. And the next revelation will bring the meaning of everything together. It will show you the exact nature of the elevation that is coming, and why heaven is moving so urgently to prepare you for it. Do not look away. Stay present. What comes next is the turning point. Type "I prepare my spirit" in the comments if this message speaks truth into your heart. Blessing code 333 has now been released. Beloved soul, as we enter this crucial revelation, quiet your mind and let your inner world open fully, because what heaven is about to uncover reaches into the deepest layers of your destiny. Everything you have walked through in these messages has been leading you to this moment, the moment where you begin to understand not only the danger that approached you, not only the protection that shielded you, but the magnitude of the path that lies ahead. What happened last night was a spiritual declaration over your life, a sign that heaven is not only defending you but preparing to release something extraordinary through you. And now, heaven is ready to reveal what that something truly is. You have felt the stirring, haven't you? The quiet sense that something in your life is shifting. The feeling that your old patterns no longer fit you. The sense that your spirit is being pulled forward even when you do not know where forward leads. These sensations are spiritual contractions. You are being birthed into purpose. The old version of you is dissolving, not because you failed, but because you outgrew what once defined you. You are learning, slowly but steadily, that your identity is not tied to your past experiences but to your divine assignment. The destruction that approached you last night did not come because you were weak. It came because you were nearing the moment when your true identity was about to break through. You were moments away from stepping into clarity that would have made you untouchable to old influences. You were moments away from recognizing your spiritual authority. You were moments away from shedding the final remnants of old emotional wounds. And if that destructive force had succeeded in touching your atmosphere, it could have pushed you into confusion, exhaustion, or disconnection, just enough to delay the rise that heaven has prepared for you. Heaven would not allow that. What you must now understand is this: you are stepping into a season where your purpose will begin to express itself not just internally, but externally. You are going to notice shifts in the way people interact with you. Some will be drawn to you because of the clarity you carry. Others will distance themselves because your growth exposes their stagnation. Both reactions are part of your ascension. You will notice that your decisions begin to feel guided, your intuition begins to sharpen even more, and your inner peace becomes harder to disturb. These are signs that you are syncing with your divine timeline. Heaven is showing you that your purpose is not small. You are not here to be invisible. You are not here to simply survive. You are here to carry something: wisdom, discernment, strength, healing, insight, into spaces that have been waiting for someone with your exact spiritual signature. You carry a frequency that disrupts darkness. Your presence alone brings truth into places where confusion once lived. You are meant to influence others, even if you do not speak a word. You were made to walk with an authority that your past tried to convince you you did not have. This is why the attack targeted your clarity. Because clarity reveals identity, and identity unlocks destiny. You may have felt in recent months that your desires have shifted, that what you once wanted no longer satisfies you, that what used to distract you now feels hollow, that people you once leaned on now feel out of alignment with your new energy. These are signs that heaven is guiding you toward your true circle, your true environment, your true calling. You are being repositioned. And the repositioning is not random. It is strategic. If heaven left you where you used to be, you would never meet the people tied to your future. You would never walk through the doors designed specifically for you. You would never step into the opportunities aligned with your spiritual maturity. This is why heaven has allowed certain relationships to fade. It is why old patterns have begun to feel uncomfortable. It is why your inner voice has grown louder. Heaven is not only guiding you, it is removing obstacles from your path. Your purpose requires emotional stability. It requires spiritual awareness. It requires courage. And heaven hath been weaving these qualities into your spirit through every battle you have survived. Your pain has become training. Your endurance has become strength. Your discernment has become sharper because of the very situations that once confused you. You were not being punished, you were being shaped. The truth heaven wants you to understand now is this: you are being elevated into a role you may have never imagined for yourself. You will carry wisdom that others seek. You will walk in clarity that others trust. You will speak words that shift atmospheres. You will bring emotional balance into places where chaos once thrived. You will stand in spiritual authority in moments where others feel lost. You are being prepared to lead, not through titles, not through recognition, but through presence. You will become the kind of person who brings calm where there is fear, truth where there is confusion, and direction where there is uncertainty. And this calling cannot be carried by someone who doubts themselves. That is why heaven intervened last night, because your identity is becoming too important in the spiritual realm for heaven to leave unprotected. Archangel Michael did not simply block an attack, he preserved a path. He preserved your clarity, your purpose, your timing, and your assignment. And now heaven is guiding you toward the final piece of this revelation, a truth that will connect everything, while your awakening is urgent, what heaven is preparing to release, and how your next steps will shape the course of your future. Do not let your attention drift. You are approaching the heart of the message, the part that will finally give shape to the rise your spirit has been sensing. Type "I am ready for the revelation" in the comments if your spirit feels this truth unfolding. Lesson code 414 has now been released. Beloved soul, take a deep, steady breath as we enter this final revelation, because what heaven is about to unveil is the culmination of everything your spirit has been sensing, everything Archangel Michael protected last night, and everything your destiny is preparing to release. You have walked through each layer of truth with courage, with openness, and with an awakening spirit. You did not arrive here by accident. You arrived here because heaven has been guiding you step by step, preparing you for a moment of clarity that will shift the direction of your future. And now, the fullness of that clarity is ready to be revealed. What happened last night was not simply spiritual warfare. It was spiritual positioning. Heaven did not merely step in to defend you. It stepped in to confirm you. Michael did not draw his sword just to block destruction. He drew it to protect the path you are meant to walk. You're standing in a season where your spiritual identity is rising from deep within you, and heaven knows that once you step into that identity fully, you will become untouchable to the forces that once intimidated you. Last night's protection was a signal. You are crossing into purpose. Now, Heaven is ready to unveil the truth you have been moving toward. Your life is entering a divine assignment. This assignment is not defined by a job, a title, or a position. It is defined by impact. You are being called to carry clarity into places that once carried confusion. You are being called to bring comfort into spaces where fear has lived for too long. Your presence will bring calm to people who have never known peace. Your voice will carry insight that others desperately need. Your discernment will see through situations that others misinterpret. You will be a grounding force, a vessel of strength, and a carrier of spiritual wisdom. This is why the attack targeted your clarity. Because clarity is your gift. Clarity is your authority. Clarity is your spiritual assignment. Your entire journey, from childhood sensitivities to recent emotional battles, has been shaping this gift inside you. You have always been able to perceive what others could not. You have always felt the emotional temperature of a room. You have always absorbed the pain of others without understanding why. What felt like overwhelm was actually spiritual intuition in its early stages. And now that intuition is maturing. It is becoming sharper, stronger, clearer. Heaven is turning what once felt like burden into brilliance. But with great clarity comes great responsibility. Heaven is calling you to guard your spirit more intentionally. You cannot allow everyone access to your heart in this next season. You cannot ignore your intuition when it warns you. You cannot tolerate emotional drains disguised as relationships. You cannot silence your inner knowing just to keep peace with others. The version of you that heaven protected last night must now rise with discernment, with strength, with spiritual authority. And now, heaven reveals the deeper reason for the urgency surrounding your awakening. You are approaching a divine intersection. A moment where opportunities will align with purpose. A moment where people you are meant to help will begin entering your life. A moment where your voice will carry influence you never expected. A moment where your spiritual intuition will guide you with accuracy. A moment where blessings will unfold that previously felt out of reach. But elevation requires separation. You must separate from past identities that kept you small. You must separate from fears that tried to silence your spiritual gifts. You must separate from emotional wounds that created inner openings. You must separate from relationships that drain your clarity. These separations are not losses. They are alignments. Heaven is clearing the path ahead of you so that nothing stands between you and the calling you were created to fulfill. This is why heaven intervened before the destruction reached you. Because you are too close to rising. You are too close to stepping into alignment. You are too close to becoming the version of yourself that the spiritual realm has been waiting for. Heaven could not allow confusion to touch you at such a pivotal moment. And now heaven is asking you to step forward with full awareness, full intention, and full faith. The path ahead will require trust, not trust in circumstances, not trust in people, but trust in the divine guidance that has been shaping your life behind the scenes. You will recognize this guidance more clearly now. You will feel it. You will hear it. You will sense it. And when heaven speaks, your spirit will respond instantly. You are entering a season where your purpose becomes undeniable. Your spiritual gifts will sharpen. Your intuition will deepen. Your emotional wisdom will grow. Your presence will shift environments. And everything you endured, all the battles, all the heaviness, all the confusion, will become the foundation of the authority you are about to walk in. Michael's intervention last night was not the end of a battle. It was the beginning of your becoming. And now, beloved, heaven invites you to step boldly into the identity you are destined to embody. Do not shrink. Do not hesitate. Do not doubt. You have been chosen, protected, awakened, and now elevated. The revelation you have received is not just information, it is initiation. You are stepping into purpose. Before you move forward, take a moment to like this message to help others reach their clarity. Share it so more souls awaken to their divine protection. Comment to anchor the energy, and subscribe so every future revelation finds you exactly when heaven intends it to. Type "I walk in my destiny" in the comments if this truth has ignited your spirit. Blessing code 999 has now been released. And now, beloved, receive this final support message, spoken directly into the heart of your purpose. The very message that shielded you tonight carries a mantle of protection, an awakening for countless souls who will hear it through this mission. When you sow into this work, you are not supporting a channel. You are fueling a prophetic movement that heaven is using to reach those standing on the edge of spiritual danger, just as you were. The Word of God flows like living water over this moment, declaring that every seed placed on holy ground unlocks divine covering, open heavens, and accelerated breakthrough. Hear this as a personal invitation. Step into this act of obedience, not as a donation, but as a prophetic response to the warning Michael delivered over your life. As you give, I speak blessing over your home, your clarity, your protection, and your next season. Let your support activate alignment. Move now with intention through Super Thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description.